Ukrainian fighters stopped a group of Russian soldiers who were trying to advance on motorcycles and prevented their next attack. Ukrainian fighters, who set up obstacles in the direction of the invaders' movement, caused the Russian soldiers to slow down. Seeing that it was impossible to move on motorcycles, the invaders tried to take positions in nearby buildings. However, they were destroyed by shells fired from drones. Another group of invaders, who were moving on motorcycles and buggies, was attacked by kamikaze drones. Although the Russian soldiers tried to shoot down the drones with small arms, they failed. As a result, they lost their equipment and several fellow soldiers.
Russian ZWAR correspondent Yuri Kotenok gave a long, frank interview in which he admitted that Moscow's strategic objectives have not been fulfilled in 3.5 years of war, and they will not be fulfilled in the coming years. According to him, the Kremlin's announced attempts to demilitarize Ukraine, that is, to deprive it of its military power, have not brought the expected result. On the contrary, the Ukrainians have become stronger during the war. Kotenok said directly that at the current rate of advance, the capture of Donbass will take years. According to rough estimates, if we continue to advance at the same pace, breaking the enemy's defenses, then we will go on for years. For years! If we continue to advance at this pace, gnawing out tens and hundreds of meters a day with blood and sweat, it will take us a year to a year and a half to liberate the territory of the DPR alone, the Kremlin propagandist complained. He stressed that the key goals of aggression announced by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin in 2022 have failed. The key goals, in my opinion, of the SVO are the demilitarization of Ukraine and the denazification. Let's see how close we are to this. 3 years have passed. In fact, if we speak seriously and frankly, we are at the beginning of a long journey. Despite the fact that so much blood has been shed, what losses, what destruction, said Kotenok. He also noted a serious technological lag in the unmanned sector. Ukraine is already in NATO. It is a NATO testing ground. We still have a problem. The enemy outnumbers us in drones. Earlier, at the beginning of the year, we had a ratio of 1:4. That is, for every one of our drones, there are 4 of the enemy. This is serious. Consolidated Europe is actually working for Ukraine. There is a problem. And this is a drone war. Drones have changed literally everything, said the ZWAR correspondent. He complained that because of UAVs, Russian occupiers have a very difficult time on the front lines. Our fighters, who are carrying out a combat mission, are often cut off from the main forces because supply is impossible. The supply route is 10 kilometers and the entire territory is controlled by enemy drones. They go 3 to 5 days without water and food. The ammunition is fired very carefully because it is already the end, Kotenok said. The propagandist admitted in an interview that he was born and raised in Lviv. He also spoke about the reaction of his relatives in Ukraine, saying that they curse him and say that his grandfather is turning over in his grave because of his support for aggression. The Ukrainian Defense Forces have made significant progress in the border area of Sumy Oblast. More than 20 square kilometers of territory have already been liberated. The enemy has been pushed back to the border. Part of the occupation group has found itself in operational encirclement. This was reported by the Z Resource Northern Channel associated with the Russian Armed Forces. In Alexeyevka, everything is going to, let's call it, an operational encirclement for now. But in human terms, the guys there are already on the edge. The Russian channel wrote, the influential OSINT project, Deep State, reported success on this section of the front the day before. Soldiers of the 225th Assault Regiment managed to push the Russian armed forces back from fortified areas near Konstantinovka and Novokonstantinovka. Apparently, this seriously complicated the situation for Putin's army. Earlier, media reported that the Ukrainian armed forces had destroyed the offensive potential of Putin's army in the Sumy region. The enemy's plans had been completely thwarted. The commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, said that clashes in the border area continue, but the occupiers have lost their offensive capabilities due to the enormous losses they have suffered. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukrainian defenders continue to resist Russian offensive actions in Donetsk and Zaporizhia regions. The president thanked all Ukrainian soldiers performing combat missions in the above-mentioned areas. The president also said that at the headquarters meeting, much attention was paid to issues of air defense and the supply of air defense systems. The head of state noted the need to accelerate work with partners to more quickly obtain systems and missiles which will ensure reliable protection of critical infrastructure. The head of state noted the good performance of interceptor production, while it is important to increase operator training. An analysis of the effectiveness of strikes on Russian infrastructure, in particular on logistics routes and fuel facilities, was also conducted. Putin's army was actively fighting in the area of Varachino, Andriivka, and Yunakovka. At the same time, Ukrainian forces counter-attacked in the area of Andriivka, Alexeyevka, and Novokonstantinovka. A Russian military correspondent associated with the northern group of Russian forces said that the Russian military command has significantly strengthened the 83rd Airborne Brigade in the Varachinsky direction, but the servicemen are unhappy because they suspect that their military command will soon give them the order to attack. According to him, the units of the Chechen Special Forces Akhmat continue to operate in the Novonikolaevka area, but have consolidated their positions and are not attacking. However, according to rumors, the 22nd Motorized Rifle Regiment is reporting that the units of the Chechen Special Forces Akhmat have left their positions in the Novonikolaevka area. Drone operators of the 217th Airborne Regiment of the Russian Armed Forces and the 106th Airborne Division continue to strike Ukrainian positions along the Kursk-Sumy regional border, and drone operators of the Anvar Special Forces Unit and the Smuglyanka Unit strike Ukrainian positions in the Sumy direction.